As you've seen in our coverage today, there are many dramatic images coming out of Mexico. Some of the strongest come from the Instagram account of photographer JC Moret. He's documenting rescue efforts in Mexico City and the surrounding area, and he's recorded some remarkable scenes of people working together to deal with a crisis. And JC joins me now. So JC, first of all, describe to me those first few minutes when the earthquake hit.
Well, I was basically in my apartment. I live on the third floor, and I also happen to live, right in the zone zero of where everything happened. So what I just did first, I just realized, what was happening, understanding the nature of that disaster. And the first thing I did is I grabbed my drone, I grabbed my phone, and I literally went out and walked out the streets and tried to record as much as I could, in a matter of minutes.
And so tell me about what you saw.
Well, at first, it's actually not what I saw, it's what I smelled. I actually smelled a lot of gas leaks everywhere in Condesa, which is one of the most affected areas in Mexico. It's actually very unstable right now, and people are advised not to take their cars or motorcycles because, any spark could unleash disaster right now. So after smelling, what I saw is basically a bunch of straight buildings, with no windows, with no walls, and even worse, buildings that are not buildings anymore, just, ashes.
And we have some of the photos and the videos that you sent us after the earthquake. They are quite incredible. Why do you think it's important to take photos during a crisis?
Well, the most important reason is because not everybody is aware of what's going on. For instance, Mexico City is a very large place, and what happened somewhere, people somewhere else may not realize it. They may play jokes, they may not know the severity of the situation. So it's always good to, to go online and share your posts. First of all, tell your family that you're okay. But second of all, let everybody know the magnitude of the disaster in case people, need to know.
Now, my producer mentioned that you were assisting police to look over collapsed buildings. You were talking about a drone, and some of these images we're seeing are from that drone. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So I own a drone, and the first thing I did is I started flying around the area to try to capture some moments from the destruction. And once I was landing my drone, actually the police approached me and they asked me very politely for my help to fly the drone near a collapsed building because they were trying to locate survivors and whatever not. So they asked for my help. They brought me inside, the limits, and they asked me to fly my drone as close as possible to the damaged areas and basically to try and find bodies and people and anything that looked human.
Did your drone help them find people or find anything?
Mostly people, but looking for something odd like gas leaks or maybe something else that might indicate that people might be there, maybe a flag or something.
Now, it's interesting that police are asking you for your help with your drone. We've spoken to other people who say the authorities are overwhelmed, that there just aren't enough police. There just aren't enough people helping with this disaster. Is that what you've observed?
No, not at all. If there is something that we Mexicans have is that we jump into helping like the first minute. I swear, when I walked out of my apartment, 5 minutes later, I arrived to a collapsed building. There were already hundreds of people there. I don't know how they got there before me, but there were already tons of people helping. Right now, if you try to approach those damaged areas, they're taking you away. They don't let you go inside. We're actually saturated by people inside. So it's actually untrue. We have so many people helping. But of course, you always have new buildings that just collapsed recently. Of course, they will say there is not enough people, but that's just because the collapse just happened. So there is always people helping, especially right now.
And so you're obviously too young to remember 1985 and how devastating that was. But tell me about what this has been like for you, just to see Mexico City with buildings collapsed and with, so far 225 people dead. What is that like for you?
Well, you're right. I wasn't around in '85, but according to my dad's statements, And what I told him, it's pretty similar, obviously, probably 10 times less. But again, it's not a comparison of whose event was worse. Both events are a complete tragedy. But at the end of the day, it feels really sad because many of these buildings actually weren't that old. Many of these buildings were either 15 to 20 years old. Some other buildings, I might say, they were even new, hopefully uninhabited. But these are buildings that should have been able to keep up with this earthquake.
JC, good to speak to you today. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew.